So, we've got a speaker coming up tonight I think most of us are familiar with. I don't have a lot of introduction that I need to do that's going to tell you anything new about the guy. He almost became the state representative for House District 92 in 2018. He's going to be the state representative for House District 92 come 2020's election. All right? So, one of the things that is going to make it a little bit challenging for us, he's going to come up and speak about, which is big money in politics. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of fracking and oil well drilling and all that kind of stuff going on in our district here. There's not a lot of that happening. But for some reason, defying explanation, there's millions of dollars coming in from West Texas into this district to try to hold this seat for a guy that really doesn't represent anybody in this room very well. So there's an organization called Empower Texans. Steve's going to come up and tell you all about this. There's some really interesting data. It's going to kind of horrify you about how people can buy elections. We've got to stop that right now. The way we stop it is grassroots, activating the local folks here, getting our 5, our 10, our 50, our $100 donations into the coffers so we can go beat this back and tell everybody, no, this district isn't for sale. So without any further delay, I'm going to invite Steve Riddell to come up and talk to us about Empower Texans. So Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, folks, so Dennis laid it out pretty clearly. My job tonight is to horrify you. So that's what I'm going to try to do with this little screen that we have here. So my presentation tonight is called Empower Texans, Who Are They and What Are They to You? To semi-quote one of my favorite Bill Withers songs. So, who am I? Well, I am the progressive liberal activist that Mr. Sticklin posted a photo about on his Facebook page right here, marching for sensible gun laws during the March for Our Lives, except the caption says, on Saturday, our progressive liberal opponent was marching to take away your guns. In November, we must march to the polls to defeat him. Onward! So, I am no expert on Empower Texans, but I am definitely a student. I learned first about Empower Texans when I was assisting someone that was running against Jonathan Sticklin in 2014. And after just getting started in that effort to help Tina Petty get elected, I started discovering all sorts of things that were common knowledge to everybody that was involved in local municipal politics or in state politics. They all knew the story of Jonathan Sticklin, and for any of you that don't, it's a story that I love to tell. Mr. Sticklin was an intermittently employed pest control technician and his mother told a block walker a few years back that he had to quit being a pest control technician and go into politics. She said, quote, because he got too fat to fit in them crawl spaces. So, politics was the next obvious career choice there. But the story of Jonathan Sticklin is that he was observed during a town hall meeting. I think that maybe John Cornyn was the speaker. He stood up and gave Mr. Cornyn a hard time about property taxes, which he hates. He hates with a passion. He does not like property taxes. Someone from Northeast Tarrant Tea Party saw him there and they were like, wow, he's really good at shouting and flinging saliva all over the room. This guy would make a great House representative. So they kind of cleaned him up. He started doing a ton of block walking, worked like the Dickens this year. I believe this was 2012? Yeah, so 2012, beginning in 2011, he walked his little hiney off, and he's still got a hiney, yes, that's correct. But so he managed to win by basically going into the primary against an established politician, but he had done a little bit more homework, and he had a ton of assistance of a very economic nature. And so he defeated the other person running, who was frankly a little bit more qualified, and then all of a sudden, overnight, his job description changed. His job description changed from pest control technician, once he has the nomination of the Republican Party for House District 92, all of a sudden his job description is oil and gas consultant. Now he's an oil and gas consultant. We have not been able to find anyone that has benefited from his consulting services in the oil and gas industry. We have not been able to find any website that Stickland Consulting LLC manages. The address for Stickland Consulting LLC is his dad's house in Hearst. And he basically made, I think in the last estimate that I saw, Stickland Consulting LLC brought in gross profits of $37,000 in 1 year, 2017. So if you talk to anybody, they're like, oh, well, you know, Tim Dunn pays his bills, right? And I don't know whether it's true, it's the rumor that I always hear, but they refer to it as the worst kept secret in the mid-cities. That basically he's owned by politicians, he's a politician whose lifestyle is being funded by people that don't live here. So we're going to get into that a bit more. Who is Empower Texans? Well, basically there are these two big orange blobs right here. This one is Mr. Tim Dunn, and this one is Mr. Ferris Wilkes. Up here we have Dan Wilkes, Kyle Stallings, Darlene Pendry, Holly Frost, Mays Middleton, who's not just a House representative now, he's also a donor to Empower Texans. And we're going to get into some more details on who all of these people are. But they also have a number of, so basically you have all of these people that are contributing to Empower Texans, but all the same people are the principal funders of a number of different other organizations like the Texas Right to Life PAC, the Northeast Tarrant Tea Party. There's just a ton of them. Texas Public Policy Foundation, Texas Right to Life, Texas Homeschool Coalition, New Leadership, Texans for Vaccine Choice. I love this one. Freedom! Grassroots America, and Constituents Focus. So all of these people are basically contributing money to all of these same organizations. Now, anyone have any idea why they would want to share that money over a number of different organizations? So even though all of these organizations are getting their money from the same 9 people, why do you think they want to give it to different organizations? Why not just put it in one organization and have that organization endorse candidates? Anyone ideas?
It looks like a lot of people support.
Bingo. So all of a sudden you've got Jonathan Stickland. He's been endorsed by Empower Texans. He's endorsed by the Texas Right to Life PAC. He's been endorsed by Texas for Fiscal Responsibility. He's been endorsed by AgendaWise, Texas Scorecard, and the Texas Ethics Disclosure Board. It's the same 9 people. So he's really not endorsed by anyone except Ferris Wilkes, Tim Dunn, Darlene Pendry, Holly Frost, etc., etc. So let's dive deeper. So I have, over the course of the past 5 years, read hundreds of articles published by the Empower Texans people. So I do this so you don't have to, and you're welcome. So this is kind of their position and the way that they communicate on their website. And they have people that subscribe to the website that believe all this stuff is true. So this is right there in the mission statement. The greatest threat to our state's economic growth and competitiveness is the weight of government on the economy. Like Texas is being really oppressive on businesses right now, keeping them from doing what they need to do. They believe that taxation is theft. This is like your big libertarian foundational principle right here. If we don't give anyone any government assistance, then they will automatically go to personal responsibility. The border is an emergency crisis. Christianity is under attack. Minimum wage increases will hamstring the state's economy. Abortion is murder. A fetus is an unborn human being. I hope that everybody saw Mr. Tinderholt's bill that he proposed this past week. He's so pro-life that he wants to kill women that have abortions. The male-female pay gap is more of a choice gap. They want it that way. The women, he means. Firearm possession is a right given by God, and permitless carry is constitutional. And non-citizen voting is, quote, a significant problem requiring much more stringent voter ID laws. Just to start with, this is just basically a condensation of hundreds of articles, but I think you get the picture. They use their website to influence opinion, and I'm going to translate these 2 headlines for you. This one says, Strauss lackey applauded by liberal Democrats, and this one says, Democrats push job-killing wage mandates. So the translations are, Democrat proposes $1 increase to minimum wage. Translation on this one is, bipartisan coalition thanks Giovanni Capriglione for help in school boards. So if you read them often enough, you start seeing the same trends in the things that they talk about. They hate property taxes. They hate former Speaker of the House, Joe Strauss, and they really hate Democrats. It just comes out again and again. It's constant. And it's very much the kind of rage politics that you see sometimes from people on the fringes, but this is very fringy stuff and everything is worthy of rage, and language like lackey. It appears Capriglione's coalition is no longer the grassroots that put him in office. So they are indignant, and they go to indignation with every article that they write. They try to influence behavior, and up until this past year, it worked really well. So they use every tactic in the book. In this particular past year, they were concerned about teachers voting and students voting that were old enough to vote. And the reason that they were concerned about that is because a group called Texans for Public Education had started organizing and saying, look, we want to vote pro-education, and we want to make sure that there's a culture of voting in all of our high schools. All of our teachers should be voting. Let's make sure that they're doing that. So they sent out a letter to a lot of school district employees, hundreds, maybe thousands of letters, and they asked teachers to be whistleblowers against districts that overstepped their bounds to accomplish political objectives. So it read, alert! Some school districts across the state of Texas are vowing to illegally misuse school district resources to electioneer for liberal candidates in upcoming elections. So this backfired on them because a lot of teachers were understandably offended by this language. So they started going on Twitter and using the hashtag blowing the whistle, and they called out their fellow teachers for doing wonderful things for their students, and it exploded all across Texas. Thousands of tweets of teachers saying, blowing the whistle on my friend Maisie because she gave her own clothes to a student who couldn't afford to wash them. Just really heartwarming stuff. So that was fantastic. But it's interesting in that what you saw in 2018 was not how it had been going in the previous 8 years for Empower Texans. They pretty much had everything all their own way. This is another fun one. So in Fort Worth, there's a Republican House representative named Charlie Guerin, and Charlie's a friend of Joe Strauss's, so of course Empower Texans hates him. So Empower Texans went and registered an official name with the Secretary of State of Texas. They have a subsidiary name now called the Texas Ethics Disclosure Board, which sounds really official, right? So they mailed out these postcards that are bright yellow and look like they came from the state government. They are from the Texas Ethics Disclosure Board, and they say, this notice from the Texas Ethics Disclosure Board is directed to voters in House District 90, I forget the number, concerning a candidate for office who must disclose a relationship with a lobbyist. It's his wife. Charlie Guerin is married to a lobbyist. So people were getting this and say, oh gosh, this looks serious, it's official. It was just for Empower Texans, and it was just because Charlie Guerin was not conservative enough for them, and they wanted his opponent, Beau French, that they had sponsored and paid for, to win that particular race. Failed tragically because it made it into the newspapers, and a lot of people did not like that sort of activity. They get involved in more than just House District races and State Senate races. They also get very involved in municipal races like we've got coming up next month. So in this particular race, this is 2014, here's a notice, here's why they like to get involved in local races. It says, the majority of tax levies come from, and public debt are initiated by counties, municipalities, schools, and special purpose districts. So that's why Empower Texans hates taxes of any kind. If it were up to them, they would have no taxes whatsoever except for a minimal sales tax just to keep the lights on. But so they approved of and funded a candidate for Keller ISD named Jolynn Hausman. Anyone familiar with Jolynn Hausman? Oh, she was a wonderful piece of work. So the headline that came out right after that, Keller school trustee censured over anti-Muslim comments. And this was right on her Facebook page. She said, I just want everyone in Keller to know that because so few people showed up to participate in the municipal elections, we now have a Muslim, all caps, with 5 exclamation points. We now have, it's like an email from your grandma. We now have a Muslim serving on the city council. And I say that's a shame. Shame again in all caps with 5 exclamation points. So she got into a little bit of hot water over that. But it's not just Keller and it's not just 2014. Even last year we had a number of people that Mr. Stickland, my opponent, was backing, and he was taking money from Empower Texans and using that money to fund local candidates for city council and for school board. So, not to brag, but we defeated every one of these candidates. Just so. And not we, I mean the community did. So I'm taking no credit for this. But they also have a very strong influence on elected officials, and here's where I think the biggest problem is. This right here is the Empower Texans vote notices and methodology. You can do it yourself. I signed up for it myself. You get a text every day that tells you how Empower Texans feels about the bills that are up for consideration in the Texas House that day. Giovanni Capriglione actually went on the record and told the newspaper when he was faced, so Capriglione used to belong to Empower Texans. He decided he wanted to vote his own conscience and stop voting the way that they told him to, and they didn't like that. So they ran a crazier guy than Giovanni Capriglione against him named Armin Mazzani, and Capriglione came out and said, when I was first elected, my opponent's funding source, that's Empower Texans, would send me an email each day telling me how to vote. I refused to simply go along to get along and follow their directives. So this is it. And we went through Mr. Stickland's vote records and tried to find an instance where he voted against these vote notices. Anyone want to guess how many there were?
0.
Just one. We were able to find one. Actually, we weren't able to find it. I actually went on his social media platform and asked him if he could tell us one vote, and after a bunch of back and forth about, that's not how it works, Steve, it's just not that way. You're not even asking the right questions. I was like, I'm just asking one question. I'm asking it over and over again. Tell me the bill number of a bill that you voted against Empower Texans vote notices. So he finally ponied up one. So there was one. So the deal is with Empower Texans, they sign on with you. They back you financially, they fund your campaign, and then you do what they tell you to do. So these are the 11 folks that are currently in the House of Representatives for the state of Texas that took that deal, that said, okay, this is a great deal. So we've got Mr. Mike Lang of Cranberry, Mr. Bill Zedler of Arlington, Mr. Mays Middleton, you remember we saw him, he's one of the main funders of Empower Texans, of Wallaceville. Cal Biederman of Fredericksburg, Briscoe Kane of Deer Park. It's kind of like the League of Supervillains. Matt Krause of Fort Worth, Matt Schaefer of Tyler, Matt Shaheen of Plano, Jonathan Stickland of Bedford, Tony Tinderhold of Arlington, and Valerie Swanson, somewhere down in Houston area, I forget exactly where. So 6 out of 11 of these are from suburban districts in the DFW area, which is weird. We're going to get to that. And now there are 11 people in this Freedom Caucus. Used to be 12 last year, or last session it was 12. They lost one because Matt Rinaldi got defeated. Feel really bad about that. And another one, Mr. Leach decided that they were a little too crazy for him and he wanted to be a regular politician, so he left. So they're down to 11. And these guys are the ones that always vote the way that Empower Texans tells them to, except for the education bill that just went through, and all of them voted in favor of that education bill, except for one. Just one of them voted against it. I'm going to let you guess which one that was. So with 11 people in a legislative body of 150 people, when you've alienated every single other member of that body by calling them all insufficiently Republican, the Freedom Caucus makes a habit of saying that everybody that's not them is a rhino, a Republican in name only, or a liberal Democrat. So There's only 11 of them, and they make it a habit to kill other people's bills. So legislatively speaking, how much do you think the Freedom Caucus is going to be able to accomplish in a legislative body where 139 people absolutely loathe them, and it's just the 11 of them? There's not enough of them to actually get anything done, but there are enough of them to cause some serious damage, and that's what they like to do. Mr. Stickland himself has gone on the record to say that his purpose is not so much to create good legislation as it is to create bad legislation, as to prevent bad legislation.